Assalamu alaikum, program Perspectives, and I'm your host Ghulam Nabi Morai. Viewers, we discuss any particular subject in depth from various perspectives. An intellectual, a writer, and an analyst. Syed Mohibullah Shah Sahab is with us. Shah Sahab, Assalamu alaikum. Shah Sahab, our today's subject is very important. And the subject is, what went wrong with the Muslim world? And my first question is, when did this decline of Muslim world start?
Sahab, you're right. This is a very important subject, and it has been a matter of concern of Muslims everywhere, from Morocco to Indonesia, in the whole Muslim world. Different forums, think tanks, leaders, they have been wondering what went wrong, as your title says, in Muslim world, because Muslims had also seen great rise. They were source of knowledge,
But may I request you to start with what was the level of Muslim world, development of Muslim world. I think from that will connect the subject properly.
So, as you said, the Muslims had seen for centuries a great rise in power and prosperity and in knowledge. They were leaders for several centuries. In fact, the world is generally known. A period of that is known as the golden age of Islam. A period where the leadership of knowledge and the leading economic power and the leading political power was vested in the Muslim world. This was the Abbasid Empire, or Khilafat, and it lasted for nearly 500 years, where scholars, intellectuals, writers, scientists, astronomers, medicine men from all over the world, mathematicians, they were invited, they were welcomed, whether they were Muslims or they were non-Muslims, to come and make their contributions. They translated books from Greek, from Chinese, from Indian languages, from others, tried to enrich the pool of knowledge from which the people could benefit. And this Muslim empire, or Abbasid Khilafat of that time, was acknowledged as the finest place for knowledge, and it was most prosperous and most powerful empire. There was no other in Asia or Europe. Far away maybe in China, but not in this part of the world, Middle East or in Europe. Now, that rise made a very fatal end in 13th century, when Halaku attacked Baghdad and ransacked it. He burned the city, and he burned the libraries also, and he killed thousands of people, including the Khalifa at that time. So let's say the scholars who saved themselves and few books that they could collect, they ran away and went to different places. This is the spread of knowledge. This is how knowledge transferred from Muslim world to Europeans. Because then, many of them, this was 13th century, the nearest place where there was a big Christian empire was Constantinople, what we call Istanbul today. That was the Holy Roman Empire of the eastern side. And then Istanbul became a center of Christian learning. Then in 1453, 15th century, about 200 years after the fall of Baghdad, then Constantinople also fell to Muslims. And the Ottoman Empire, they became powerful and they controlled not only Turkey, Istanbul, but many other European countries, and then of course in the Middle East all the way up to Africa. So there was, yes, knowledge, economic prosperity, and political power vested in the Muslim world. Initially, this golden age of Islam for 500 years with the Abbasid Khilafat. Then from 15th century in Ottoman Empire. Then of course in the Spain, there was for several centuries, there were Muslim rule in Andalus or Spain and Cairo. And then there were other centers like Isfahan in Iran, for instance, Persia in those days. So there was Muslim empires, political power, prosperity, centers of knowledge. Now they continued roughly around till 17th or 18th century. Now, as I was describing to the viewers, that slowly we should see how the decline of Muslims and the rise of non-Muslims, especially European civilizations. How are they rising? How are the Muslim decline is continuing? First, it was the golden age in 13th century after Halaku's destruction of Baghdad. Then again it rose in Andalus when Muslims were in big power, and they contribute fantastic in astronomy, in architecture. The Alhambra in there is even today is acknowledged one of the finest specimens of architecture, and the knowledge. In fact, many Christian scholars, including some like Martin Luther, who started the Protestant revolution in church, many of them had studied in the libraries with the Spanish Muslim Empire in Andalus, in Spain, had set up libraries, centers of knowledge, where not only Muslims but non-Muslims would come and they would acquire knowledge, including some of the leading theologians, reformers of the Christian community. And they went on to bring many reforms. Then, of course, so the point is that there were many Muslim centers of learning, of power and prosperity. There was Baghdad, there was Istanbul, there was Cairo, there was Alhambra, the Spain, and there was Isfahan, and of course here, there was the Mughal Empire in those days. At different times, in different places, they continued. If one was rising, the other was falling, and other was rising. But they all started to fall together. Around 17th, they started to become weak, and they started to fall in 18th century. Now, what were the factors which contributed to this decline and the rise of the Europeans? So I would say there are 5 factors. We'll go on talking in details. As the Muslim, these factors, they contributed to the decline and they contributed to the rise of the European civilization. 5 factors as far as I have studied this matter. 1. In many Muslim countries, education became education without knowledge. Now there's a difference between education without knowledge and education with knowledge. Or, let us say, education that does not prepare you to be useful in society, to contribute anything. That probably is also the case, mostly in Pakistani education, where students spend so many years without learning anything useful to make them useful in society or contribute. So one, education with knowledge. That's one. Second, especially let us say, especially respecting the reason, opening the minds to science and technology. Second. Third, social, economic, and political reforms to empower people. Fourth, work ethics, that it's not leisure. To do nothing is not a good thing, but to work is a better thing. The work is worship. So you find education with knowledge, you find mind opening to science and technology and accepting new knowledge. Two, you want social, economic, and political reforms. Three, you want empowerment of people. Four, and you want work ethics. Five. Now these are the factors. They were slowly disappearing in Muslim society, and they were now rising in the European society. Then we'll go into the discussion further in the next session.
Very good. Let's meet at the break. Welcome back. Shah Sahab, you told our viewers, informed our viewers about the decline of Muslim world, from where it started declining. Now, let our viewers know that what were the factors for the rise of the European.
Yes, we talked about in the first session how Muslims who had risen to such power and prosperity, and slowly they started declining, first in Baghdad, then in Andalus and Spain, and then in Ottoman Empire, and then Mughal Empire, and all of them then became weak by the end of the 17th and beginning of 18th century. And then the rise of the European civilization starts. Now this continues the discussion, the factors which contributed to the rise of the European power. The decline of one civilization, another civilization is now rising again. Same five factors that we were talking about in the end, which contributed to the decline of Muslims, they became strong points of the European civilization. For instance, we said that one of the reasons that Muslims in the Golden Age, for instance, they were leaders in knowledge, astronomy, physics, medicine, philosophy, architecture. In several areas of knowledge, they were far superior to others, and people from everywhere would come there to learn. Now, that education now became without knowledge, without adding anything to them. But Europeans now started that our education will be that which opens the minds to the science and to technology and to reason. And that opening created the pillars on which the new civilization was rising. For instance, if we give some examples of how education with new knowledge was adding to the prosperity and power of Europeans. 3-4 examples, for instance. One, the first thing that indicated that the European power is now acquiring new knowledge and therefore advancing, progressing. First indication came in the 15th century when Gutenberg in Germany, he invented the printing press. Now with the printing press, it became possible to publish material and educate a large number of people compared to some Katib writing himself or herself. So now here is spread of knowledge, and the medium was printing press, which the Europeans started. So the knowledge spread out. Now what was there then? It produced this knowledge. Many people came to learn what was happening. Okay. Another sign of this new knowledge, Galileo in the 16th century, he discovered by his astronomical studies, he discovered that a solar system exists in the world. Earlier, Christians and Muslims and other people felt that the earth is the center of universe, where we live, human beings. This is the center. He said, no. Earth is not the center, the sun is the center, and there is a solar system. And this was against the Christian religion. But the scientific system, which now is accepted everywhere, so that was a second. It's a new knowledge is opening. Christian faith did not accept this. He said, "Dude, it's our religion does not say, Christianity doesn't say that the sun is the center and the earth and other planets are revolving around it." He said, "No, I have discovered and experimented and proved by experiments. Sun is the center of the universe and there are planets, including Earth, which goes around." Now that was a new thing, and it led to many other things. For instance, see? Third, another measure. This is the new knowledge being created. Now you see, earlier, as I was saying, this kind of a knowledge was created by Muslims also. There was Ibn Sina, there was Ibn Rushd, there was Al-Khwarizmi. Some created algebra, mathematics, science, philosophy. But that knowledge had now disappeared from the Muslim world as the decline started. And here is the rise of European civilization. And the first factor is knowledge. Prosperity, power comes after. This is first thing we must recognize, that the first pillar of your power is the knowledge. If you don't have that right kind of a knowledge, then you cannot become prosperous or powerful. Muslims lost that touch of new knowledge. Europeans started to gain that new knowledge. And I'm giving these examples. Okay, so the knowledge spread by printing press of Gutenberg, and there is new knowledge created. Then this fellow, Galileo, he said, "Baba, I have learned from this new knowledge that there is a solar system and the earth and other things are evolving." Okay. Then comes another genius, Isaac Newton. He discovers the laws of gravity. He says, if the earth is moving, why is it not falling? What is holding it? It continues in the same. Now the laws of gravity, how the system is kept together in the way, and this started from that very, I think many schools in physics, anybody who has studied physics in schools would know the example of Isaac Newton was sitting on an apple tree and the apple falls down, and he starts in his mind questioning, why has it fallen down? Why has it not gone right or left or up? What is it that has pulled it down? And from there came the discovery of the laws of gravity. And ultimately, it is the laws of gravity and the discovery of the solar system and the planets which enabled additional knowledge to be added and added and added, and finally the man landing on the moon. This is how you keep adding to the knowledge. You open the doors and the new knowledge keeps coming up, keeps coming up. There's no fixed limit. Okay, so now this new knowledge was being created. Okay, simultaneously there are other people in Europe who were also working in another area. As I said, the 5 things that we brought the change, we included social, economic and political changes and reforms. Now, this was scientific new knowledge. The knowledge is to be used by whom? Human beings. But if you do not allow human beings to use that knowledge, if you don't open opportunities for them, if you keep them under control, no, you can't use this knowledge. This is against the, say, a particular Raja or emperor or a king. He is very angry. Don't use this knowledge. Or some religious person or some religious cleric, somebody would be, doesn't allow this. No, you liberate the mind. Now, they were the people. These were now social, economic and political philosophers. They were working. They were also the same people working in Muslim world also at that time, Ibn Rushd, Ibn Sina, but then that decline had come. Now the same thing was being done and new knowledge was added. They were social reformers. There was John Locke, there was Thomas Hobbes, there was Rousseau, there was Montesquieu, there was Voltaire, there's so many others. What they said was, allow human beings, liberate their minds, allow them to work and use this knowledge which is being created. Do not curb them. Do not put barriers on them because of this reason or that. Liberate the minds of people, which means social reforms, which means political reforms, which means economic reforms. Now you put the things together. Here is a new knowledge being created, new inventions, and the fact that knowledge has no end. New things are coming. And here is the second part, social part, that this knowledge should be used. There should be no ban, no control. Liberate the minds to use this knowledge. Okay. Now put the 2 things together, new knowledge and liberated minds. What did it produce? It produced the Industrial Revolution. Now we'll talk about that.
Let's meet after the break. Welcome back. Shah sir very intelligently told to our viewers about the knowledge, social and political reforms which led to the Industrial Revolution. Now, how would you say this Industrial Revolution will go further?
Okay. Now, this combination of various factors that we talked about, it produced this major transformation of society. Major transformation of society, which was named Industrial Revolution. Now, many people, thinkers, philosophers, scientists, have come to this conclusion that this major transformation, it was so holistic, it was so all-encompassing that such a major transformation had not occurred in 10,000 years. That's why it is called a revolutionary change. If we look back in history, we see that, in the earliest prehistoric days, there was the time of hunters and gatherers. Nomads, people would, move from place to place, hunting animals or searching for food. They could not live at one place. This was the Stone Age. This was the nomadic period. Then about, say, 10,000 years before Christ, as the calculations and the time perspective goes, then human beings started, they learned the technique of agriculture to produce surplus food so that they can stay at one place. No need to run around to south, to north, to east or west after the animals. You produce the grain for food and look after your land and then settle down as village, then the towns, and then the civilizations that we talk about these days. There was a Babylon, Mesopotamian civilization, there was an Egyptian civilization, there was Indus civilization, there's a Chinese These are all from the what was called Neolithic or agricultural age. When human beings learned the technique of producing surplus food so that they can stay at one place. When they stayed at one place, then they started to do the other things. What kind of a houses, what kind of a towns, what kind of architecture, what kind of a government, then the other thing, then the trade. So this is how these ancient civilizations they came. Now, this all continued, this was all manual. This is the point. This was all being done by human hands or horsepower. If you had more horses, you are more powerful. If you had more manpower, you are more powerful. Otherwise, you were weak. Now comes the machine age, the Industrial Revolution. Number of men is not important. Now, Industrial Revolution comes, you can use the machines to produce power, economic power, even in several ways, even political power, and many other things, knowledge. Now, but Industrial Revolution, as we first talked about, is a combination of many things. Industrial Revolution may use machines, but it's not just the machines that produce the Industrial Revolution. No. It is not just the science and technology and inventions. They were important, but it is not just they that produce the Industrial Revolution. It is not the social reforms we talked about. They are important, but without knowledge, they would not be producing Industrial Revolution. The point I am making is that Industrial Revolution that we have said is combination of social, economic, political, technological, educational reforms. It's a combination. If you are doing only one thing or two things, you will not be successful in industrializing your society and acquiring the power. You have to do 5 things, as we talked about earlier. Okay. Now, Industrial Revolution, it started, these combined forces, they produced this new knowledge, and because humans were empowered, liberated in their mind to apply this knowledge, and they were protected by a rule of law, that if you, let us say, Morai Sahib, why would anybody work if the reward of his work or her work are snatched away from that person? Why would? There's no incentive to work. Whether you are a farmer, or you are an industrialist, or a scientist, or a teacher, or a doctor, or anything. There has to be law to protect that what you work, what you produce, you are entitled to the reward. So, not only science and technology is essential, not only social and political reforms are essential, not only machinery is essential, but the protection of rule of law is also essential. All these things combined, they produce a transformation of society. Now this Industrial Revolution, which started in late 18th century, and it immediately transformed the society. Immediately the Europeans, they became very powerful. And we give an example, for instance, right here in the subcontinent. Let us say mid-18th century, 1750. Up to 1750, subcontinent of India was richer, more powerful than England or Germany or France. At that time, India was producing about 25% of the world GDP. And whole of Europe, France, England, Germany, they were producing only about 12% of the GDP of the world. India was producing twice as much. It was a rich country. But it was falling because of those five things were declining. And the Europeans who had used those five things, the ingredients, they had acquired so much power that a small country, England, was able to conquer India. Small country Netherlands was able to conquer Indonesia. Small little European countries were able to conquer large countries in Asia and Africa and South America. So now in the Mohenjo-daro age, our industrial civilization, more man or more horses means more powerful. Now, a small country in Europe, empowered by new knowledge, empowered by social reforms, was able to create new source of wealth and power and dominate and control and colonize large countries like India, parts of China, Indonesia, Africa, and many others. So what we say are the two or three things before we move into the second part. The point is that the critical factor that has brought this transformation is to recognize and implement, not just by word, to recognize and implement in every way that knowledge is power. There is no other source as powerful as knowledge. And apply that knowledge and to use this scientific discoveries, supposing the printing press is there, supposing Thomas Edison, he invented electricity, for instance, or somebody who did the computer. Now, if the human beings do not have freedom to use this, that knowledge remains useless. As we talked in another example, why in the Ottoman Empire, the printing press was not allowed, that it is against religion. So that it was there, but people were not empowered and allowed to use to benefit. So, one thing before we can, that Industrial Revolution empowered small countries to overcome and colonize large countries. The source of Industrial Revolution was that acknowledge that knowledge is power, new knowledge can be created, human beings can be empowered to use that knowledge, and they can become very powerful and very prosperous. Why the Muslims have declined? The Muslims have not learned this lesson. They have not created new knowledge, and they have not empowered their people. That is why their decline, their Industrial Revolution has not been successful, because the transformation of society is not taking place, because the new knowledge is not being allowed in Muslim world. Therefore, the decline continues, and we'll talk about it in detail in part 2.
Thank you, Shah Sahab. Goodbye, viewers.